The other thing I've noticed, having driven this car extensively now, is that the interior ambience, the dash cluster, everything that you're touching and feeling in here is actually, once you've cleaned it up, not so bad. It actually feels like a really good place to sit in on a long journey. It feels like you're sitting upright. You don't feel like you're going to fall asleep when you're driving it. You feel pretty well set up in here as a car for a long journey, and that's what I'm getting the sense that Mitsubishi were really aiming this at. Looking for those relatively younger people who are buying these cars, young women buying these cars and doing long journeys in them with the family. That's sort of what the vibe I'm getting from this car, having driven it. And that's something that the previous owner did do. They did do a lot of Ks. The last 8 years of ownership, previous owner stuck 100,000 kilometres on it. And one thing I noticed with that was the previous owner changed the oil every 25,000 Ks. Yeah, which might explain the state this car was in when I got it. That was the kind of maintenance that happened to it. And that was something that came up with this car a lot. It's something that you should always think about with some cars. The vibe I got from how this car was treated, the state it was in, the dirtiness of everything else that you touch, sit and feel in, and specifically the carpets, I got the sense that this car was, not going to say carelessly maintained, because that's a bit too nice to sum up what I saw. Careless maintenance is not doing things, being a bit aloof with how you maintain the car in terms of cleanliness as well, and also having things on the car that aren't exactly perfect, but you don't know much better. This, on the other hand, looking at the state of everything, I'm going to say something else. It's a bit controversial, but I'm going to say previous owner, the person driving it was definitely a woman, because we noticed there's like was a shit ton of hair ties and hairpins under the driver's seat. And I get a feeling this car was purchased by her ex-partner when they were together, and this car minded the owner of her estranged partner and treated the car with the same view she had of this individual, i.e. not very well. I reckon this was badly maintained to the point of, because it was someone else's car, someone else had paid for, it was maintained poorly because of the memories of that individual. Because the car had two sunshades in the back, so that meant there was children in the back of it. You don't maintain a car that badly by accident. You don't drive a car that has children in it with tyres with a massive lip on them. You don't drive a car like that if with the rear seal for the boot broken, and then you just cut it off with what looks like a Stanley knife and you let it have no boot seal. This is someone who this car had some bad memories with. This car was bad memories for that individual. And I gotta say, the state I got it in, one spare tyre and 3 crappy tyres, busted exhaust, lots of suspension work, noisy belts, and a service history that is suggestive of the fact that maintenance was something of a bit of an afterthought with this car. It did say timing belt in 2018, but I saw no stickers under the bonnet. I looked at the state of the car and went, I don't believe they've done this. I said they were meant to do it, but they may not have done it, so I just went and did it anyway because it was probably the right thing to do. And the 4G64 is an interference engine, so if you didn't do the belt, the engine had a chance of blowing up. At least for the next owner, the timing belt is done. It's peace of mind for them to drive this car. And you know what? They probably can drive this car another 100,000 kilometres, because we've done so much to it there isn't much more that's going to go with this car. The only thing I can really see that has half a chance going is the transmission, which might go out at some point, being an automatic in this vintage, but I don't see much else going out on this car. And even if the transmission did go out, it's not expensive to fix, 4-speed box. So it's not really that much in terms of expenditure if something went wrong with it. So it's at a point where this Outlander, if you were to buy one today, I don't know if you'd find many Outlanders that have been this heavily sorted out. Decent tyres, timing belt, water pump, suspension all done. There aren't very many out there that have been this well sorted as we see something on the roads of country Victoria that you will see, and that is a tractor on the highway. But that's something that you have to think about with this car that I always thought about was at some point someone's going to buy this cheaply, and initially I thought it's going to last 2 or 3 years for someone, and then something else will go out with it and then they'll chuck it away. But now, having fixed it up, sorted it out, I reckon for whoever buys this car has a car that will definitely give them something that'll last the course. It'll at least give you another 3 or 4 years trouble free. Probably give you at least 300,000 Ks, I reckon. I've seen quite a few Outlanders up for sale with over 300,000 kilometres on them. They can do it. They can do the mileage as long as you maintain them. And that's the problem with these cars, as long as you maintain them. Said it in the buyer's guide, and I say it again. It's not the car that's the problem, it's the people who buy it. That's your biggest problem of them all with the Outlander. It's those careless maintenance, poor build quality on some of the earlier cars, so the paint and the exhausts on these early 02 to 04 builds really means that they amplify the idiot owners with these cars. They amplify that poor ownership with these cars makes a bad situation worse. Mechanically they're quite strong, but it's cosmetics, trim and ancillaries that really annoy them. The only mechanical thing that you should be really bothered about with this car is the catalytic converter and the exhaust. Common issues with Mitsubishis of this vintage, as well as the paint in terms of cosmetics. That's, well, not the only Mitsubishi with lacquer coat peel on it. We did give it a bit of a quick clear coat with a spray can to protect the paint. As a bit of a, Nick and I did some work on it. We mostly aimed, okay, it's not the best looking paint job in the clear coat. So yes, this is not a car that I originally thought much of, but as I've come to drive it, I now do see a purpose for this car. I can definitely see there is something to this car for someone who wants a car that's a long distance cruiser. It does make good sense as a long distance cruiser. It's quite a relaxed car to be in terms of the driving position, although I really wish it had telescopic control. It has the turntable, tilt table, up and down, but no backwards and forwards, and the steering column. But if you're someone who would fit this car properly and you wanted a long journey car, this is actually a car you'd be thinking of if you want to put 5 people in it. So it does have a purpose, this Outlander.